The insult came like a bullet, fast, loud, and impossible to ignore. It was a peaceful May morning in 2025 at the presidential palace in Ouagadougou. President Ibrahim Traoré, Centralieu, was sitting with his family, casually going through economic reports over breakfast. The calm didn't last long. His chief aide, Moussa Kabor, burst into the room, face tense. "Mr. President, you need to see this right now," he said, holding out a tablet. Ibrahim looked up, puzzled. "It's Trump," Moussa added. "Hey, made a very aggressive statement about you, on Fox News." Ibrahim took the tablet and the screen came alive with the image of Donald Trump, visibly animated. "This Ibrahim Traoré, from some place called Burkina whatever, is a complete failure," Trump said, jabbing his finger in the air. "Just a little soldier, pretending to be president. I built a billion-dollar empire while he was still playing with toy guns. He should be grateful I even know his country exists." The words hit like a slap across the face. Ibrahim's wife Adjara froze mid-pour with the coffee pot, her expression turning sharp. "How dare he?" she muttered, but Ibrahim didn't flinch. His eyes narrowed, steel behind calm. "Call an emergency cabinet meeting. 30 minutes, and get the press room ready," he said, rising from his seat. As he walked out, his mind turned to the irony. 3 years ago, Burkina Faso was struggling with chaos and poverty. Since then, under his leadership, it had become one of Africa's rising stars: economic growth, poverty reduction, education reforms, and yet, to someone like Trump, he was just another nobody from an unknown nation. But the world didn't agree with Trump. Within 2 hours, the video clip exploded across social media. Hashtags like #RespectBurkinaFaso and #TrumpVSAfrica were trending globally. News outlets jumped on the story. The palace was swarming with reporters. During the emergency meeting, Foreign Minister Dr. Alance Ouedraogo spoke urgently. "Mr. President, we've had calls from 15 African leaders expressing support. Even France's President Macron has weighed in. And the African Union?" Ibrahim asked. "They've officially condemned Trump's remarks and are demanding a retraction," Ouedraogo replied. Across the Atlantic, the mood in Washington was tense. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken rushed into the Oval Office. "Mr. President, your comments about Traoré are triggering a diplomatic storm. This man is no small-time leader. He's respected worldwide." Trump leaned back, unfazed. "I just said what I think. Never even heard of the guy till last week." Blinken's tone sharpened. "He leads a resource-rich nation in the Sahel. Gold, uranium, international partnerships. He's not someone we can afford to mock." In Paris, Macron called a closed-door session. "Traoré is one of the most capable leaders of Africa's new generation," he told his aides. Trump just insulted a whole continent. In Beijing, Chinese officials spotted an opportunity. "If the Americans don't value African partnerships," one diplomat said, "we certainly do." Back in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim had prepared his response, a single, cutting sentence that would echo across continents. At exactly 2 p.m. local time, he stepped into the palace's press room in a crisp navy suit. The atmosphere was electric. Over 80 international journalists were present. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, France 24, everyone was watching. He stood at the lectern, calm, composed, and unshakable. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began. "This morning I was made aware of President Donald Trump's remarks. He called me a little soldier playing president. He said I should thank him for acknowledging my country's existence." He paused. The room held its breath. "Mr. Trump," Ibrahim said slowly, looking directly into the cameras, "you built a billion-dollar empire by inheriting $400 million from your father. I built a nation out of ashes, with nothing but courage and vision, inheriting only poverty and chaos. So tell me, Mr. Trump, who's the real builder?" The room fell into stunned silence. Not a single camera moved. Not a single reporter blinked. The sentence hung in the air, like a thunderclap, clean, sharp, unforgettable. That it wasn't loud. It wasn't long, but it hit like a missile. With that one line, Ibrahim had drawn a brutal line between inherited wealth and earned legacy. The contrast couldn't have been clearer, and the impact couldn't be undone. "Thank you," he said simply, stepping away from the lectern without taking a single question. In the White House, Trump watched the moment live. For the first time in years, he looked pale. His usual bravado was missing. He had no words. And Ibrahim's words, they were about to echo around the world. Within minutes, his quote became the most shared statement in social media history. "Traoré destroys Trump. #real leadership. #Africa rising. #respect Burkina Faso." All dominated trending charts globally. On CNN, Anderson Cooper looked visibly moved. In just 30 seconds, he said on air, "Ibrahim Traoré may have delivered the most powerful political rebuttal of this century." It wasn't just a clapback, it was a masterclass in dignity. Twitter exploded. Former U.S. President Barack Obama tweeted, "True leadership is measured by obstacles overcome, not fortunes inherited. Respect President Traoré." Elon Musk posted, "Savage level, Ibrahim Traoré." Even Republicans couldn't stay silent. Senator Mitt Romney commented, "Politics aside, this was a stunning display of statesmanship." Back at the White House, chaos broke out. Staffers scrambled, shouting over each other, trying to contain the fallout. "Mr. President," said Trump's chief of staff, "we need a statement. Urgently. Social media is on fire." Trump looked shaken. "Who is this guy again?" An aide replied nervously, "Ibrahim Traoré, sir, president of Burkina Faso. Harvard Business Review named him one of the world's top 10 most innovative leaders in 2024. Trump's face turned red, and no one thought to tell me that. Meanwhile, in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim sat quietly in his office, watching the storm unfold. His team gathered around him. "Mr. President," said Yakuba Sowadogo, his media advisor, "your quote is being translated into 47 languages. It's everywhere." Moussa Kabor added, "Over 3 billion views in under 2 hours. But Ibrahim didn't smile for the numbers. He smiled for something else. "It's not about views," he said. "It's about dignity." Ajara entered, carrying a cup of tea. "I'm proud of you," she said gently. "You defended our nation's honor without anger, without shouting. You did it with facts. This," Ibrahim replied, "is how you respond to bullying, with truth, not noise." In the hours that followed, the global political landscape shifted. The African Union called an emergency session. All 54 member nations issued a joint statement. President Traoré has spoken. For every African nation, his courage and composure are an honor to the entire continent. Unexpected ripples followed on Wall Street. Investors, curious about this rising African nation, began looking closer. They found an economy growing at 12% per year, vast gold and uranium reserves, and a young, educated workforce. Stocks of companies operating in Burkina Faso soared 7% in one day. "This might be the best global promotion a country's ever gotten," one Bloomberg analyst remarked. Back in D.C., Trump finally managed to tweet, "Ibrahim Traoré is a great leader. I've always said Burkina Faso is an amazing country." Fake news twisted my words. The internet was merciless. Comedian Stephen Colbert tweeted, "When you start praising the guy who just ended your whole reputation, you've officially lost." Across Burkina Faso, the streets filled with celebration. Young people danced in the boulevards of Ouagadougou, waving flags and chanting, "Our president showed the world who we are." Outside the U.S. Embassy, crowds gathered not to protest but to take selfies. "We just want to show we're friends," one student said, smiling. "But we respect those who respect us," and the world took note. Harvard offered Ibrahim an honorary professorship. Yale proposed a university partnership. Columbia invited him to speak on transformational governance. Even foreign heads of state reached out. "We want to learn from your approach to rebuilding a nation," said Colombia's president. But Ibrahim declined for now. "Burkina Faso first," he said. "The world can wait." Within a week, global media had declared a new narrative. Time magazine ran his photo on the cover with the headline, "The Man Who Redefined Power." Because, in just one sentence, without threats or insults, Ibrahim Traoré didn't just answer, "Donald Trump." He reminded the world what true leadership looks like. In just 3 years, Ibrahim Traoré has transformed Burkina Faso in ways the world didn't see coming. He cut poverty by 40%. He doubled GDP per person. And in 15 regions, he completely eradicated malaria. His secret, massive investments in education and job training. Over 500,000 young people are now trained for high-tech career skills. Even European nations want. France was caught off guard. President Macron called an emergency meeting and said, "We must admit it. A new generation of African leaders is rising and Ibrahim Traoré leads them." China didn't wait. President Xi Jinping immediately offered $5 billion in infrastructure deals to Burkina Faso. "China recognizes visionary leaders wherever they rise," said the Chinese ambassador. In Ouagadougou, even Vladimir Putin praised Traoré. "This is what leadership under pressure looks like." Russia is ready to partner with real sovereign nations. Back in Burkina Faso, the impact was instant. Tourists flooded in. Hotels were fully booked. Travel agencies launched new packages. Discover the land of Africa's boldest leader. But Traoré stayed humble. "We still have millions to lift out of poverty," he reminded his ministers. Then, something unusual happened. $15 billion in foreign investment proposals arrived within 48 hours. Burkina Faso had become one of the hottest countries in the world. But Ibrahim stayed focused. "We don't want to grow fast. We want to grow right." Meanwhile, in Washington, Donald Trump was panicking. Just 2 weeks earlier, he had insulted Ibrahim now. It was backfiring. His approval rating dropped 8 points. Even conservative voices on Fox News started criticizing him. To regain control, Trump held a press conference. "Burkina Faso is tiny. I move more money in a day than they do in a year." But reporters came prepared. A CNN journalist asked, "Mr. President, Burkina Faso is growing at 12% a year, 3 times faster than the U.S. How do you explain that?" Trump snapped, Fake numbers, fake news. The data is from the World Bank, sir. Halfway across the world, Traoré watched it all on live TV. He turned to his advisor Ajara and said, he doesn't learn. The more he attacks, the more he exposes himself. Then came Traoré's response, just one tweet. Numbers speak louder than shouting. Burkina Faso grows by building schools and hospitals. Some build walls and tweet. 2 million retweets in 1 hour. Even Republicans in Congress couldn't stay silent anymore. A Texas senator said, "This is embarrassing. That young African is making our president look like a child." Tucker Carlson. Brutal. When you're losing to a guy no one in America knew last month, maybe it's time to rethink your strategy. Then came the final blow. Congress invited Ibrahim Traoré to address a joint session, a rare honor for any foreign leader, especially an African one. Trump was furious. This brat speaking in my Congress. But he couldn't stop it. 78% of Congress approved the invitation. Ibrahim thought deeply. This could elevate our voice, but we must do it on our terms. He agreed, but only if he could visit African communities, universities, and real people in America, not just politicians. When Ibrahim Traoré accepted the invitation to speak before the U.S. Congress, the world held its breath. Television networks across continents interrupted their regular programming. Newsrooms scrambled for coverage. The White House, clearly unsettled, tried to downplay it. It's just a routine speech, said the press secretary, but nobody bought it. Everyone knew this wasn't just a speech. This was the moment a young African president would step into the heart of American power, not to plead, not to bow, but to speak as an equal. In Ouagadougou, the streets erupted with pride. Our president is going to show the world who we are, said a street vendor. Trump's created a monster, joked a university student with a grin. But Ibrahim remained grounded. I'm not going as a conqueror, he told his team. I'm going as a bridge builder. On a brisk morning, in May, Ibrahim Traoré set foot on U.S. soil for the first time. Washington, D.C.'s airport overflowed with energy. Hundreds of Africans from the diaspora gathered to welcome him, waving Burkina Faso flags and holding up signs. He represents us, said a Senegalese nurse. He speaks for all of us. Trump declined to attend the official reception. But Congress had something else in mind. A grand welcoming ceremony was arranged. The day before his address, Ibrahim visited Howard University, where students welcomed him like a hero. You are the bridge between Africa and America, he told them. Never forget your roots, they are your power. The day of the speech, the U.S. Capitol was at full capacity. Senators, diplomats, world leaders, and journalists filled every seat. Even Trump begrudgingly took his place in the presidential gallery. And then came total electric silences. Ibrahim stepped up to the lectern. He looked out over the most powerful legislative body in the world and began, "Honorable members of Congress," he said, "I come to you not as a subject, but as a partner, not to beg for help, but to offer cooperation." For the next 45 minutes, Ibrahim painted a bold vision for Africa, one rooted not in aid, but in partnership, respect, and mutual prosperity. Burkina Faso does not want handouts, he said. We want investment. We do not need saviors. We need equals. He spoke of 2 million jobs created, 1,200 schools built, and solar programs that electrified remote villages, all done with local willpower, local solutions, and unshakable dignity. Then, with calm resolve, he turned toward the gallery and directly addressed Trump. To President Trump, he said, "I say, greatness is not measured by inherited wealth but by the legacy you leave. And you still have time to choose what legacy you will leave for America." For a moment, there was a hush. Then the chamber erupted in a standing ovation. Even Republican lawmakers applauded. Trump stayed seated, stone-faced and stunned. That speech went down as one of the most powerful addresses in the history of the U.S. Congress. 6 months after his viral sentence that shook the world, Ibrahim was back in Ouagadougou, but planet had changed. His words had become required reading in diplomacy courses. Harvard launched the Ibrahim Traoré Young Leadership Prize, awarded annually to emerging changemakers. In Burkina Faso transformed. Over $25 billion in global investment poured in. APA announced a factory in Ouagadougou. Google opened an African research center. Microsoft launched tech training programs for Burkinabe youth. Standing on the balcony of the presidential palace, watching the construction of a new technology university, Ibrahim turned to Ajara. "I never imagined one sentence could change so much," he said quietly. Ajara smiled. "It wasn't the sentence," she replied. "It was your courage to say what needed to be said." Still trying to reclaim the narrative, Trump attempted one last spin. "I always knew Ibrahim was special," he told a reporter. "I'm the one who discovered him for the world." The global reaction, laughter. Even Trump's most loyal allies distanced themselves. But in Africa, something new had begun. A generation of young leaders across Ghana, Senegal, Rwanda, Kenya were now calling themselves the Traoré generation. They stood for education, integrity, merit, and dignity. And the world took notice. The World Bank published a landmark report, The Birkenade Miracle, How One Nation Transformed in 3 Years. It became an international model for sustainable development. The United Nations appointed Ibrahim as a special advisor on African transformation, but Ibrahim remained focused at home. On a quiet evening, walking through the palace gardens with his daughter, she tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy," she said softly, "you're famous all over the world." Ibrahim knelt down and smiled. "No, my love, I'm not famous, I'm useful. And being useful is much better than being famous, because the sentence that destroyed Trump didn't just shake a president, it built a movement, it reshaped a continent, and it redefined leadership through merit, dignity, and the courage to speak truth to power."